Hello, Nigel. How are we doing?
Hello. Yes, very well, thank you.
That's or should I say to you, Namaste, because you do speak Hindi as well, don't you?
Namaste, namaste. आप क्या है?
Wow. मैं ठीक है और आप कैसे हैं?
I haven't practiced any याद नहीं. Yeah, 10 साल तक मैं हिंदी पढ़ा था.
Oh gosh, mate,
Yes.
put it this way, you know more than me. All I ever say is Hanji. I always say Hanji and Tika, and that's it. You speak Hindi, you know, Hanji, Tika.
I mean, I got really into it for Dosal.
Okay, so
You know, I went for 2 years. I studied it. I went to evening class, Shamko class. I went
yeah.
to evening class, and I got the books, and I learned the lekak, the Devanagari,
Wow.
how to write it and all that.
That is impressive. The main thing that everyone wants to know is, can you write your name in Hindi? Because I think that's the first thing that you always try and learn to do. I think that was the only thing that I could do when I went to try and learn Hindi, was to write my name, Vimal, as people would say, in Hindi. Yeah. And that's it. I can't write anything else.
Yeah, no, I managed. I kept vocab books. I've got them here because I knew you'd ask this.
Oh, gosh. I'm too predictable.
And then the vocab, I was just looking at it just now. It's years ago. I used to write out, I can't find the page now, but I used to have to write the Devanagari, then the me would be M-A-I, and then I, English. So I'd write 3 columns. And then in the last book I discovered I was just writing the English word and the word in Devanagari. So I could obviously, at that point, I could read in the Hindi script.
Wow, that is
but
brilliant.
That's, you know, it's forgotten. It's mostly forgotten.
I mean, so I'm going to ask you in the style of Cilla Black. It's, you know, for those who don't know, what's your name and what do you do?
Yeah. My name is, I'm just trying to get lucky, Cilla. I just want to be lucky. Nigel Planer. And what else did you ask?
What do you do?
What do I do?
Keep it brief.
Yeah, no, I'm an actor and a writer.
Brilliant. So I'm going to go through, what I was going to go through actually was, firstly, how have you been coping with lockdown?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, I haven't had a car for 20 years, and because I live in central London. But we've just given in, and I've hired a car for a month just to get about a bit, because don't really want to go, even though it's okay to. My wife and I, a bit old, few underlying healths, and so we thought we won't go on the tube just for the meantime. So I've hired a car. The traffic's not too bad, but you know, I haven't had a car for 20 years. It's been so nice not having a car, but I'm now enjoying. I can drive to a part. The walk around where I am got a bit boring. You know, after 3 months, you want to walk for 20 minutes, or maybe get a little Boris bike up the road to do a walk. So now we actually drove down into the country. We even stayed over in a hotel last weekend, one night. All we dared do. We're very we're cautious because as I say, we're getting on, and we've got some of the underlying health vulnerabilities, and you know, just seems might as well be cautious if you can afford it, if you can do it, you know.
I didn't know whether you'd done a Dominic Cummings quite early on and kind of said, "Oh, I'm going to just check my eyesight," and started driving.
Yeah. No. Only started driving like 2 weeks ago. We were absolutely, we obeyed everything. We were pretty cautious. I mean, I always used to be cautious with that alcohol gel. I used to always carry that around with me anyway. So I am a bit hypochondriac in the first place. Yeah, I think Dominic Cummings really blew it. I mean, all up until then, everybody, you had the feeling, didn't you, that we're all in it together, even though we're not really. But there was at least some kind of feeling of let's try and get through this. And then that thing and his excuses and the way he sat in the garden of Downing Street to give his answer. Why? I don't know. He's suddenly given the sort of state. It's like he was given the equivalent of a state funeral, It was, the whole thing was very, not that trust was running high with this lot anyway. Yeah, I was kind of, because they won such a big majority, I thought, okay, got to go with it. You can't keep fighting. You got to go with it. That's what they haven't just won democratically. They've cleaned the board. So I sort of I'd got my head round going with it.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't what I voted, none of it's what I voted for, none of it's what I wanted.
It's quite amazing, because I think there's been loads of us like that. And we kind of going, wait, how come they got such a massive majority? But something have you been doing any creativity during this lockdown? Have you been writing? Because I know you're a writer. And
I have actually. Yeah, I was very disappointed at the beginning, because I was just on the verge. I had 3 or even 4 plays. I've been writing plays for some years now. And one I wrote with Ade Edmondson. We had a reading the day before lockdown, and it looked like we might have the play on in Trafalgar Studios in London, like a West End run, little West End run, and a musical I'd written. We were going up to Northampton to do the final pitch. We've got producers, we've got we were nearly there with that. So it was very disappointing here. Well, actually, forget it. Theatres don't exist anymore. And when they start up again, you're probably not at the front of the queue, because there are people, obviously, they're not going to say, quick, make way for Nigel. So it was a really...
They may do. Yeah. They may go, listen, yes, we've got to have Nigel's play on. I mean, I think...
they'd be going, well, we've got 3 by David Hare, 1 by, Mark Gate, 2 by Patrick Marber, also in the queue. They're not going to say, no, put all those people aside. Let's hear what Nigel's got to say. It's not going to happen. But I mean...
who you've got to do your collaboration with then.
Yeah. Or who I've got to sort of strange things happen to in the night, really.
Oh, well, exactly.
Finally, the work's still there, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, from what I gather, didn't you used to be a gravedigger many years ago?
I was originally a gravedigger for some months, my first job ever. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's always somewhere where you could put their bodies if you kind of slip back into it.
True.
Yeah.
The dangerous old thing, though, I wasn't very good at it. You have to dig down and make sure that the earth doesn't fall in on you. And I'm not sure now that I'd be that. It might be a bit of an own goal.
Oh, gosh.
I started digging.
They perhaps enjoy that, knowing that you wouldn't be there, then putting your work up.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the first plays that I'd seen that yourself had done was A Game of Love and Chai, which I think that was a couple of years ago?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, it went on tour.
Yeah.
And
for me,
at the Tara,
it was a Bollywood theme. Is that most of it was anyway, from what I remember?
Yeah, what it was it's a play that was written in 1707, I think, called The Game of Love and Chance, French farce about a girl who doesn't really want to get married. She's very modern and she's fed up with men. In the original, it's her dad. I made it her mum. There's an arranged marriage plot in it, basically. France, 18th century France, and she doesn't really want to meet the suitor, the guy. So she arranges to change places with her servant. Say, look, you pretend to be me, I'll pretend to be you. I am. But unknown to the girls, Guy has changed places with his driver. So he said to his driver, look, you pretend to be me, I'll pretend to be you, and we'll get the girls out. And that's the basic plot. It's a mistaken identity plot. And it's really funny. It's been funny for hundreds of years. But to do a modern version of it as an arranged marriage plot, it's obviously got to be the British Asian family. You're not going to make it. It just fits perfectly. It's really funny. And so I've always been a fan of Indian cinema, not just the Bollywood, but also the parallel cinema. You know, I'm really sort of a bit of an obsessive on that. And so I picked up, when it says he sings a song of love in the old French thing, I thought, oh, let's get in, you know, Pucha Zara Pucho from Raja Hindustani. Let's have that. And because it's like a Bollywood movie, you don't have the problem of can the actors sing and play the instruments? What are we going to do? You slam it on from the movie, and they will mime it in the theatre and do the full. We had a beautiful choreographer guy called Shane Shampoo, who choreographed this stuff, and it was like suddenly you're thrown in a small theatre in England into the midst of an actual Bollywood movie. It was really lovely.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. For yourself, were you doing another play which again had an Indian theme? Was it Should We Be Standing Here, which you were due to, which should have been on now?
That's one of the plays. Yeah. Should We Be Standing Here is my adaptation of a play by Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore, called Muktadara, about a dam that stops water flowing into the neighboring state, and the various sort of nationalisms and divisions and racisms that go on between these two countries. And the king in Tagore's version, I've made him the state minister. Tagore's version is set in ancient times. I brought it up. It's a hydroelectric dam on the border with China, and so I've made it more sort of relevant today. But I've put it in because it's heightened stuff. Tagore, I've put it into iambic pentameters, so it's like Shakespearean dialogue. And we did a reading just before the lockdown. We did a great reading with Nitin Ganatra, and that's the trouble.
Amit Chana.
We had an amazing cast.
Yeah, you had Amit Chana, I think.
Chana.
And you had Shane as well. Shane Shampoo.
We had Shane Shampoo. We had Naveed Khan.
Yeah.
It was pretty fantastic actually, and they just grabbed it and went with it. I mean, it was a reading. They had the script. We just did it in a day, but that was very exciting. I get very excited about that one because I think it's time to revisit Tagore, because he got a bit orientalized by the West when he was a bit misunderstood. I mean, it's slightly his fault for going around in a great white beard with the big robes and making, made him look a bit priestly to the West, but the stories, many of the Satyajit Ray, Ritupana Ghosh films, there's lots of films based on his stories, and they're polemical stories. They're not wishy-washy stories. They may be poetic in style, but he has a pretty strong message, and I think it would be just great to get him new interpretations of him.
So with your research, go on.
Yeah, just what I remember, there was one by Tanika Gupta. She did a modernization of The Home and the World, which is a film, Satyajit Ray film, based on a Tagore novel. But she modernized it and set it, I think, in Birmingham.
Okay.
Story. There's a radical who's lodging with an old friend of his who's married, and the guy's wife, the friend of his, who's a sort of high status guy, who's very, very open with his wife. His wife falls in love with the radical, and he won't stop it because he's too sort of liberal minded. He won't put his foot down, and disaster ensues.
For you, Nigel, does it become more difficult in the sense that we can't help obviously notice the fact that you are not Asian, unless you are, I don't know, or you may have lived in India or had that whole cultural experience. So as a writer,
I've been there a lot. I've been there, yes, 8 or 9 times, yeah.
Does it become more difficult for you though as a writer when you're writing about things like that, where people are going, Wait there, what does Nigel know about it? He's not even Indian.
I think I got more worried about that than I needed to. I was very, very concerned that who am I to write this kind of thing? But so far, every time I've presented it, or I've had casts like Nitin and Amit and that, and people have come to the shows, they've been so welcoming and understanding. I think it's a question. It's very quick to tell, isn't it, when someone is just, without sounding off too much. It's genuine. My interest is genuine. My study has been genuine. My knowledge of the history, the politics is genuine. I studied African Asian studies at university, and so I've been sort of, I feel I've kind of earned a little bit of the right to at least write those characters.
But I assume it's kind of like, I'm of Asian background, and we can reverse it. And I don't think many people would bat an eyelid at it. I assume it's that whole kind of thing, isn't it? We're living in a bit of a strange time at the moment, where you're kind of always worried, going, am I doing this right? Am I doing? And nobody wants to upset anyone. Whether it's me, whether it's you. And you're kind of like, wait there, am I doing this right? Or am I? I mean, I'd be 100% for anyone who wants to write about anything, because, like, as you've said, if you've studied it, you've gone into it, and what happens is, when you've got actors who are playing the various roles, they bring their little nuances, whereby they might go, hey, Nigel, you actually pronounced that correctly. I've been saying it wrong all this time. It's all those other kind of things that people can bring into it, and sometimes I think it's the actors are the ones who kind of go on.
It's what the intention is behind it. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to write. We shouldn't have to write only for our own personal experience. There are areas where I am. I can never work it out. Is it first or second generation immigrant? My dad, Europe in 1933. So I'm used to sort of a mixed language at home. So I mean, I've got some connection. You do know what I mean? But I think it's like Mel Brooks said about jokes: it's really difficult to say what's going to be offensive or not. Is it? Yeah. And all you can do is say, what was the intention behind the joke? Was it a destructive? Was the idea of the joke to ridicule or hurt someone? Or was it a well-intentioned thing? And even that you can't really measure, can you? I think it's a difficult thing.
It is difficult. I remember many years ago, one of my friends, she was at St. Martin's College, and she was doing a project, and I said, what's the name of your project? What are you doing? And she said, art is a borderless world. And you're kind of like, wow. Wait, if we could live life like that, with whatever we are kind of doing, within reason, you're kind of like going, okay, that just opens it up, doesn't it? Because it's like, it's a form of art. This is how I'm expressing it. Some of the stuff that I do might be offensive. Some of the stuff might not be offensive. So I assume for me, that's always kind of stayed with me, I assume, in terms of...
I think there's good ways and bad ways of doing it, though. That's the trouble. You can get, if you think back just in our lifetimes, I don't know how old you are, but in our lifetimes on the telly, how Asian things were represented on the telly in the 70s. And,
oh, gosh.
things move on a bit, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But I heard the other day that bloke, now was it Ain't Half Hot Mum?
Yeah.
Well, that sitcom, Michael Bates, playing the Indian, he was a white man, playing the Indian character.
It was always at the end, wasn't it? When you go, end of hope and glory.
Doing the full, that bloke.
Yeah.
And we look at that. How come they got a white guy? But the thing's always complicated. He was actually Anglo-Indian. He was born in India, that actor, and his first language was Urdu.
Wow.
So his skin color was wrong.
Yeah.
But he was an Englishman.
Yeah.
It sort of, and I suppose does that. Yeah, you shouldn't have had a white guy playing that part, no question.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's a more nuanced, complicated thing than at first we think.
It's that thing, isn't it, where things kind of move on. I mean, I remember even now, whereby when I was younger, I used to sit down with my parents and we used to watch Mind Your Language. I mean, so politically incorrect, but we just couldn't stop laughing. And my dad would be looking at the TV and going, "Oh, that is how the Pakistanis are," and vice versa, and all that kind of stuff. And my friends would say the same thing the next day at school, and it was just very, very funny. But I mean, today there's no chance, I think, anyone getting away with anything like that, because there would be
on the other hand. I mean, I love what Adil Ray does. Adil, the friend
Citizen Khan.
Yeah, Citizen Khan. I mean, a lot of the sort of trendy, cool people think, "Oh no, that's terrible," because it's sad, straight comedy, but it's an Asian family in Birmingham.
Yeah.
So if you compare that to Ain't Half Hot Man, or as you say, Mind Your Language, and look what Citizen Khan has done, I think it's brilliant what he's done. He's just turned the page. History, just bush like that, done.
So come on, tell us, what's your favourite Bollywood or Hindi movie?
Ooh. Recently, I've been getting into this actor, what's he called? Balraj Sanu. These are old films. Kabuliwala, which is a Tagore story, and a brilliant film about partition called Garam Hawa, Hot Winds. And it's a much more subtle and there's a lot of things. I mean, even on telly at the moment, we're used to seeing things about partition. This is about a businessman, Muslim, and they're trying to hang on in the Indian partition, and the family have such dignity. He keeps his dignity. All from their point of view. It's a really good one. There's another one, Amir Khan. Amir Khan.
What, Three Idiots?
One.
I know that one.
I can't remember I think it's based on the Ice Cream Man.
Okay.
Where they're a Parsi family and they have to get involved. This was a good one. But yeah, Garam Hawa, I would say.
Was that back in the 60s? Was that done, or was that kind
Garam Hawa, I've got a date written there somewhere. I think it's early 70s. It's late 60s or early 70s. Yeah, it's good.
Go on, Nigel.
Well, I was just going to say that those are the kind of serious, old black and white, meaningful stuff. In terms of the fun stuff, I love Three Idiots.
Yeah.
I like most of what Amir Khan does, actually.
Yeah.
And a good sort of in between from the very serious Satyajit Ray art film and the Bollywood fun film is Shyam Benegal's film. I really like him. Their Colour, Ankur, Shabana Azmi. He made Shabana Azmi in the first place. Mm-hmm. And I just saw an interview with Rakesh Amprakash Mehra, who did Baj Milka Baj, Milka Baj, Run Milka Run, the one about the Olympic run.
Yeah, Mika Singh.
That's it. That's the guy.
Yeah.
And he also did Rang de Basanti. Mm-hmm. I thought that one's a bit too much plot. Sometimes they've got to go on an extra hour, haven't they? That's the only trouble.
Yeah.
They do that extra hour and you're going, oh, what, a new plot now about the mum's thing, and the Air Force is suddenly involved. And it's like too much, isn't it? Quite often.
It's all marketing, Nigel. It's that thing of where you have to have an interval, and then at interval you have to buy samosas. It's the only way they're going to make money, Yeah.
I went to the Regal Cinema in Mumbai, and there's a big sign outside saying no eating, don't bring food into the cinema. I thought nobody looked at it at all. Everybody completely ignored the sign. What did you turn up with? We didn't know. Me and my wife, we were trying to be obedient and very good, So we didn't have anything to eat. And allowed to return to the cinema if you go out and things. Nobody was paying any attention to all of that.
Did anyone offer you any food?
No, they didn't actually. But that's not. I mean, we were sitting on our own, in a corner, nervously. We were quite nervous in a way.
You talk about obviously the films that you've enjoyed and that you've been over to India. what keeps drawing you there? I mean, it's quite interesting in terms of, I assume, kind of your own journey. I mean, we'll go on to your character that you did, you know, in terms of,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know, even the character you played, Neil, he was very spiritual again, which is a real Indian side, the hippie side of it. Was that something that you always had already, or was this something you kind of don't know, which was always within you itself? Do you think, or?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's a satire on that attitude that if it's Indian, it has to be spiritual. I mean, we're taking the piss out of that attitude, really. I first went when I was 1973, and it was a bit different from how it is now. And that was very hippified then. And I think that attitude, I mean, I read somewhere that in one of the universities, American universities like Harvard or whatever, until recently, if you wanted to look up anything about Indian history, you had to look under religion. It's as if there's been no political history in India, and I kind of personally I try and spiritual about it, because I think that's I think that's something that we all jump on in the West. That's everybody thinks, oh, you're into India, you must be you know, you must be all spiritual, and that was me. And I think, yes, there's obviously there's an awful lot of religious practice, religious belief, but there's an awful lot else going on as well. Having said that, I have tried most of the alternative therapies, alternative things. I used to do as much as I could. I've narrowed it down now to just practicing Tai Chi.
So, which parts do you have a specific area that you tend to go to, or do you stick to kind of like Mumbai, Goa, Delhi? Or do you kind of go?
No, I've never been to Goa. The most interesting part was now called Odisha. When we went, it was called Orissa, and the south of Kolkata was really reminded me. We went there 5 years ago, and it reminded me of India in 1973 in a way. It's like the big new economic boom didn't get to Orissa. You know what I mean? It was fascinating, really fascinating. In West Bengal we went, been all over really, except in the middle. Haven't been to Bengaluru and
Hyderabad. Those
haven't been in the middle really.
Yeah, no. I love India. I hope you like the food, or are you going to tell me you go there and you go, please, only omelette?
No, I do like the food, yes. I like the food. I got very sick when I went the first time.
Oh, Delhi belly.
Yeah, there was no bottled water in 1973, and I ended up in the Hospital of Tropical Diseases.
Oh my gosh.
In London for a while. And I suppose that's why it turned into a sort of, having been that sick, I felt I had to sort of go back and face the demons. And then I started going back again and again, and it sort of turned into a life's interest. I don't know how else to put it really.
So for you, in terms of going back to your writing a little bit, do you think there'll be more kind of writing in terms of Indian themes, or?
Well, probably at the moment, probably not. What I decided to do with all these plays waiting to go and nothing happening was I decided I was doing an audio book. I was in the middle of reading a comedy audio book. I do them every now and then, where you get to do all the funny voices of the character. And the lockdown happened, and they sent me a microphone, and we finished the book from home, working from home. So I did it with the microphone from home, and that made me think. You know, audio and prose, writing prose, not plays. So you don't need an actor, you don't need a theatre, you don't need all of that. That's really going to be more worthwhile to get some kind of purchase on. So I've just a couple of weeks ago I finished writing this book. I'm sending it off to publishers now to see how it.
Okay. So
the deal on it, you know.
We won't because obviously you're not going to say the name yet, but once it's all done, then obviously we'll look out for it.
Yeah.
We'll just type your name into it'll happen. I know it'll happen anyway.
Well,
So
fingers crossed. And it's got funny characters in, so I'd like to, like record it and do the voices, and that'd be great. And it's got me thinking, because I wrote a couple of novels years ago, and me back into thinking, yeah, maybe that's the way now, because it's so difficult. Theatre's going to be really, really, messed with. And even filming telly, my stepson's a focus putter on cruise, and he says they're all, everyone's got to wear a mask, but the actors can take them off. You've got to do your own hair and makeup. It just doesn't sound quite like filming and theatre. The whole point of filming theatre, I've done a lot of musicals, is contact, really close contact, contact with a big audience and contact with each other. And I just don't see at the moment a future for that.
So for you, you've adapted accordingly. Just a little bit, actually, I just wanted to ask you quickly was, if the BBC, the BBC's Marigold Hotel, if they said to you, Nigel, do you fancy coming along to India? We want to explore it, get your view, you'd jump at it?
Yeah. Yes, I'm not so sure about, they did one in Florida, didn't they?
Okay, yes.
I'm not so sure about that one. Okay. But yes, I would. I think those kind of things, though, I'm not that good at being a cheeky personality. Somebody like Miriam, who I've worked with loads of times, Miriam Margolyes, she's just brilliant in those things because she's such an outrageous personality. You know what I mean? She just gets on and bees Miriam, which is like a performance.
Yeah.
And Paul Nicholas was really good too. He's another friend of mine, had a good sort of angle on who to be. But I'm not sure in that kind of exposed filmed thing how I'd fare. I think I might get a bit sulky. I might be the sulky one.
You're going back to Neil.
Yeah, I would. There's a lot of me in Neil.
In fact, in terms of when you did play the character Neil, how much input did you have in the character?
It was my character that I used to do on stage in a thing with Peter Richardson.
Okay.
We had an act, double act, which then went to the Comedy Store, and Neil was one of the characters, and Paul, the Mandrax freak from Fistful of Traveller's Checks, was another one of the characters. And we used to do them on stage at the Comedy Store and the Comic Strip Club. And that's where we met Alexi Sale and Rick Mail, Ade Edmondson. And so the young ones kind of grew out of that work we were doing. Rick and Ade knew Ben Elton and got him in to write this script with Rick's girlfriend at the time, Lisa Mayer. And so the creation of it, although the writing of it was by those three, the sort of the nest out of which it came was the whole group of us. And so the Neil character was there, not 100%, because he never used to have the very long hair. That was the BBC went in and said, we're going to have some kind of wig, because I was doing other work where I had really short hair. And it was going to be this, but they said, well, we've left the hairs long because we don't know where to cut them. And we just put the wig on and went, that's it, that just looks perfect. So that sort of Neil was born through a lot of different circumstances. So the character already existed, already spoke like that. His whole attitude about, his whole sort of attitude was already there. He used to come out on stage and say, I've got a couple of numbers that I'm going to do for you now. He had a guitar,
Yeah.
And they're both pretty bad, actually. So I'm going to do the worst one first, so the second one won't seem quite so bad. And that was his act. He did it was Neil. It was a Neil act. But in terms of the actual dialogue, we had a little input, but it was basically a scripted piece. And then if a piece wasn't working in the rehearsal rooms, we might improvise around it a bit. Then Ben and Lisa would come in and go to another room and make that into another page of script. And normal process. I mean, that's the normal process.
I didn't know whether, you know, obviously, because you had the crazy gang all working together, whether it be a case of, oh my gosh, he's going off on one again, he's going off on one again, but it works. You know, I didn't know, and you're kind of doing your bit as well. So, but it was quite scripted.
There was an element. Yeah, there was an element of that of group. But in the end, you've got to write a camera script. You've got to know which camera is going to get which little look.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a script to work from. And Ben Elton and Lisa Mayer and Rick Mail were, you know, came up with the actual, did the legwork of making a funny script. I mean,
in that time, from what I remember, Neil was, the character was always a babe magnet. Did you find that? I mean, because I remember being at school and everyone was kind of like, all the girls would be, oh yeah, I love Neil, he's just brilliant, isn't he? And it was like they always wanted to go over to him and mother him. Did you find that when you were out on the street?
No, some guys threw snowballs at me once.
Oh gosh.
Going, oh Neil, ha ha, you know, thinking it was okay. I think I always assumed that people would think it was okay to abuse me because Rick and Ade abused me in the program. Mm-hmm. And in terms of being sort of sexy and a babe magnet, I think Rick was, in our group, we would have considered Rick out on, you know, if we went out together, he was the sexy one. Because he told everybody he was the sexy one.
Yeah, you must have had the time of your life during that whole period. I mean, what was it, a good 5-6 years, was it, that whole kind of...
All in all, from the time of sort of, yeah, it was more than that. It was nearly 10 years where we were working as a group, if you consider the Comedy Store and the comic strip. And we toured Australia and we toured England, and then we toured the young ones, and then we, you know, and then there were still comic strip films, even when the young ones had finished. A sort of 10-year period, really, where we were seeing one of the group most days.
Mm-hmm. Was it difficult for you to lose that? Because, I mean, you did the character so well, to kind of lose that whole element of being Neil, where you're kind of going, no, I want to do a different role. I want to do a serious role. And they're like, Nigel, we're sorry, you can't, because everyone knows it's your character is Neil. Was that a difficult?
Yeah, I think I struggled too hard against that. I mean, when we went on to do Filthy Rich and Catflap, I deliberately made a completely different character. That only lasted the one series. And then I was acting in straight roles. And I was in Shine on Harvey Moon, playing Lou Lewis, a completely different character. So I didn't sort of say, no, I want to play these roles, but I did avoid roles which came along, which maybe had Neil element, you know, when somebody was obviously thinking, oh, look, let's get Nigel, it'll be just like Neil. And I turned those ones down, and I think that was stupid. I think I should have done them. Why not? You know, in retrospect, a couple of sort of bigger ones came through that were obviously Neil offshoot things. And I think these days, I didn't need to be so proud. Mm-hmm. You know, one gets very proud with it all. Oh,
I'm an actor.
Yeah, I'm an actor. And I then went on to create another sort of character from my own alter ego, you know, from myself, Nicholas Craig, the actor, the pretentious actor. So even though I was doing that, I was kind of taking the piss out of myself while I was doing it. Mm-hmm. And that character lasted a good, more than 10 years on and off. We made a book of him, and we did live shows and TV shows and radio shows of this pretentious actor, mm-hmm. Nicholas Craig. That was fun to do as well. Very, very big contrast. Very vain character. Very full of himself. He deliberately chose the opposite.
With the young ones, obviously, I know things have changed. Would you ever do one show in terms of the old ones, almost, or is
that's the old question that And people have been asking us that question since sort of 1989, I think.
Okay.
And well, it would be Rick died, so it wouldn't be so easy. And B, I think we look a bit sad trying to be funny. You know, the sort of in the same way as we used to be. There was a bit when it nearly came to be a comic relief thing, and Ben wasn't available. I didn't want to write it, and I was trying to persuade. Oh, they've turned into amazing big time writers now. Jesse Armstrong and Sam Bain, the guys who wrote Peep Show originally, but of course Jesse Armstrong now writing Succession and just about everything else. You know, time they were the only two sort of comedy writers I thought might get the sort of grossness of the humour, and it wasn't serious. Paul Jackson, the producer guy, would have done it, and Rick, if asked, this was when he was still alive. You know, he would probably. Chris would have done it. I'm not sure Adrian would have done it. He was probably too wise. He's always been very wise, and would have said, "We're going to look like idiots because we're not. You know, we're older guys now. We're old people.
Yeah.
And have us running around shouting. We're only going to look less than we were. We're not going to look better than we were. We're going to look less." So I think he's right. I regretfully have to listen to Adrian's advice. I just wrote a play with him 2 years ago.
Okay, yeah. Was that Vulcan 7, was it? Was it Vulcan 7?
Yeah, it started as Vulcan 7. We've changed the title now to It's Heading Straight Towards Us.
Okay.
Which is a funnier title, we reckon. We took it on tour. We did it together. Samuel West and Tony Gardner to play our roles. And it was so good. They were really, really good with our rewritten script. So I'm still hopeful for that. But it means I've been seeing a lot more of Adrian in the last sort of 4 years than I have done for years. And remember what a wise person he is. And I'm saying that in the most kind way I can. It's quite a struggle. You know, you have when you're writing with somebody, you sort of, but we get on well. But I don't think we would have got that old ones thing off, even for comic relief. You know, it wasn't enough willpower.
I think there's that thing, isn't there, whereby the young ones in its time, it was for that period itself, and you're kind of like, oh yeah, wow. I think from my perspective, it's me just being greedy in my indulgence, where you kind of go, okay, the old ones, if they were the old ones, what would they be thinking about? Even if in terms of Rick's character, he's no longer there. That whole kind of reflection and kind of going, how have those characters kind of changed? You know, has Neil changed?
Yeah, that's quite a fun exercise, isn't it?
Yeah. But then it becomes something else. Yeah.
Neil would definitely have made a lot of money because all those protestations about being so right on and don't be a breadhead, all of that, I think he would have found a way out of making, whole natural products and really whole earth. And he would probably have, and it's still with the long hair, gone, oh, no, my company's like totally into contact and humanity and communication, and he would have continued the bullshit, and probably made a lot of money.
Yes.
And want everybody to think that he was really kind of cool and noble and moral.
Do you think he was pre-Greta?
Environmentally?
Yeah.
I think, I'm just trying to think back, because I mean, he's based on, I was at university, lived in a Spartan night, and he's based on a lot of people I knew. Just trying to think back. 1971, I think people were aware of the environmental issues. I read a book called How the Other Half Dies. There was Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. There was E.F. Schumacher's Small is Beautiful. There was enough, there was stuff around at the time in the late 60s, early 70s for environmental awareness. Yeah. Yeah, so he probably would have been, but he would have got it wrong. He would have somehow managed to get it wrong.
Nigel, for you, what is there anything that, I mean, you've done so much. I mean, you've done theatre, obviously, you've done TV, you've done film. What is next for you? What would you, if you could do one thing that you kind of go, you know what, really need that on my CV. Is there anything specific? I don't know, write a Bollywood film, or be in a Bollywood film, or a Bollywood film here in, I don't know, in Birmingham or in London, or
Yeah.
it wouldn't be Bollywood.
Well, I had a load of plays that I put on. Among them was I had a talk with Sean Foley, the new director of the Birmingham Theatre,
Yeah.
about doing another sort of adaptation, like Game of Love and Chai, of another classic comedy play from the 18th century, and bringing it into Birmingham. I won't tell you what it is because it's such a good idea. I'm really pleased with it. It's a really good idea.
Right, I'm going to start going through all. I'm going to start going through all the
18th century plays.
Yeah, yes, I'm going to do that.
And that I would like to do that. I'd love to do that in Birmingham. You know, because I think until this pandemic happened, I think it was quite an exciting and bold appointment to make Sean, who's basically a comedy man, director of the Birmingham Theatre. And we all got, oh, great, off we go to Birmingham. This is great. Yeah. Let's go there. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that would be exciting. And I'll tell you what I'd really like is something I've already got, but more of it is there's a brilliant series on television at the moment called There She Goes.
Yep.
And I'm in 2 episodes. I play Grandpa, or 3, is it? I'm not in the whole thing. It's a sort of small but important role. I'm Grandpa Gandalf there's a severely learning disabled child, and it's David Tennant and Jessica Hines, the parents. And it's the difficulties they go through. It's based on the true story of the writers. And it's a really groundbreaking series because it's very funny, but it's also very, very touching. It's very moving. Cry and laugh at the same time. And I play Grandpa Gandalf. And I just hope that gets... I've only ever done 2 series of anything. I've never really, apart from the comic strip, gone into 3rd and 4th and 5th series. So I just hope that somehow Grandpa Gandalf becomes an incredibly important character who's in every episode. 3rd, 4th and 5th series. Oh, There She Goes. That's what I'd like, because it's such a lovely company of people. And I really feel it's a series that's, that's worth doing. It's not just another series. I think it's a brilliant series.
You've obviously been playing the role of grandpas quite recently. I think it was you in David Williams' Grandpa's Great Escape itself. In fact, that's where we met when you were touring.
That's right. Yeah.
You stayed in a hotel, and I bumped into you on Christmas Day, and we shared a glass of brandy in the changing rooms. I think it was cognac actually we shared in the changing rooms. That's right.
Very nice Christmas it was up there in Sutton Coldfield.
Yeah. We won't give the name of the hotel.
Well, yeah, but it was in Sutton Coldfield.
Yeah, it was lovely. Look, Nigel,
I had a moustache that size because I was playing Grandpa in the David Williams.
Yes, you did. That was just amazing. How long did that take you to grow?
Couple of months, 3 months.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good fun. I love doing a big show like that as well. In a stadium. Yeah. Really satisfying.
Do you, again, I assume it's that whole thing of when this whole COVID crisis and lockdown is over, were you still halfway through the tour? Did you manage to finish the tour itself?
No, we finished the tour January. It was quite a short tour, just over the Christmas period. So no, that was all done and dusted.
Mm-hmm. But you'll gladly take on any grandpa roles that are out there.
I am quite into doing the grandpas at the moment, having done Grandpa Joe in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory at Drury Lane. I seem to be, go-to grandpa now. It's not bad. Good. less dancing,
Gosh.
usually, when you're a grandpa.
And are you singing as well? Because obviously you've done your theatre pieces with which you did with We Will Rock You and Rocky Horror Show. You did singing in that? So is there a plan on?
Yeah,
any
yeah,
more?
yeah, and Wicked and Chicago and loads of musicals. Hairspray, I did.
Gosh, well, are you still getting royalties off A Hole in My Shoe?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought you might have been getting or is it the writers who are getting that?
Well, the writers would be. No, I would if it got a lot of plays. If it was
Okay.
played, yeah.
I checked earlier on. Apparently, you've had more plays on YouTube than the original.
Oh, really? That's good.
So yeah,
I think you have to get millions and millions on the new social things. You have to get so many plays before you can earn. It's a bit of a disaster for musicians and things at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. But look, Nigel, it's been so lovely chatting to you. I really appreciate the fact I really appreciate the fact that you've taken time out. Is there anything we can look out for? I know, obviously, you said that there's a few audio things that you're going to be released, so obviously people can just type your name in and keep up to date. But is there anything? And obviously, you're in this current series, which is on BBC Two, which I think
That's
they can get on catch up. Or is it There She Goes?
Yeah.
Is there anything else that people can be looking out for? Or
not particularly. The thing that I was most proud of is something on audio, called Jeremiah Born in Time, which is a kind of time travel audio drama with Tim McInerney and Celia Imrie and Chris Ryan again, a massive, brilliant cast. And that's 4 hours of audio drama. So I tried a new style, which is like a kind of Doctor Who style adventure story. I mean, it's not like Doctor Who in many ways, but it's an adventure in time, comedy adventure in time.
Comedy. Well, we will look out for that. Just want to say a big thank you. I just want to say a big thank you to you again. And thank you. I'm going to just stop recording now. Cheers, Nigel. I've been so cautious. I've been trying to be so careful not to keep calling you Neil or Nigel. You must have had that throughout your entire life, where people are going Neil, and you're going, no, it's not Neil, it's Nigel. And
that's right. Yeah, and it's £1 every time you do it. So
But that I owe you, or you owe me.
But you didn't do it. You didn't do it.
I didn't do it. Few. I'm relieved. Thank you, Nigel. I'm going to just stop recording.
Brilliant. Good to speak with you, Mal. Yeah.
Thank you.